Hello and assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Dental Talk. And today we have a very, very special guest with us here. Today I've been meaning to bring him on the show for a while, and finally we've been able to set it up. We have Dr. Ali Khurram with us here today, who completed his BDS in 2001. He completed his MSc in Oral Pathology from the University of London in 2003, and then he went on to do his PhD in Oral and Maxillofacial Pathology from the University of Sheffield in 2008. He has had an extensive career in the field of pathology, specifically in oral and maxillofacial pathology. He has been working at the University of Sheffield now for over 11 years as a professor and consultant pathologist, and he's also held various roles within the NHS and healthcare education organizations in the UK. He is also the founder and lead of the NEOPATH Research Group in Sheffield and holds a visiting professorship at Shifa as well. He's been involved in many professional societies. I could go on about his research as well, but I think we should start with the interview. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It means so much to me that you took out time on a Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, sir. With your permission, should we start the interview?
Please do.
All right, sir. थोड़ा पीछे जाते हैं टाइम में. Tell us a bit about how you got into dentistry, how you got into BDS back in 1996, and how were those 4 years, 5 years of dental school like? थोड़ा उस पर बताएं, then we can move forward.
That is a long time back. So, back in the day, it probably still exists in Pakistan. You don't have many options, or at that time at least, you either parents want you to be a doctor or an engineer or something
Yeah.
like that. My father always wanted to be a doctor and couldn't fulfill his ambition because of family commitments. So um, I just thought, okay, my sister was already doing medicine. I didn't want to do medicine. So I thought, okay, dentistry. People said, oh, that's an easier option. It's only 4 years. And after 4 years, you don't have to do any studying. And 30 years later, I'm still studying. So in my mind, I was taking the easy option by doing dentistry. And it was meant to be the lucrative option as well. And perhaps it's not as lucrative as it used to be. So my reasons for going into dentistry were quite naive, I think, and very quickly I realized that. And my time at the dental school was a bit mixed, although I was at Demon, which is a great place, and there were some great teachers and made some really good friends. But there are also things that are not so good, particularly not just in Demon, but I think dentistry throughout in Pakistan. Not every teacher is exactly at the same level, you would say. And just because someone is a good clinician doesn't mean that they can be a good teacher as well. So there's two very different things. And unfortunately, Pakistan, they all get muddled together. And I always felt like that some of the people perhaps weren't putting in as much effort in trying to teach. They were basically just ticking a box. Having said that, there were some amazing teachers, and for those you actually put in the effort and did the extra hours, I put my hand up. I wasn't the best of students, but I feel like I was as much to blame as the environment and perhaps the people around me, because as soon as I left that place, I've done okay. But you just need to be sort of a certain type of person. And if you don't study that way, then you are going to struggle to fit in and do well in the Pakistani undergraduate dental education system. So yeah, it was sort of a mixed bag. Some great memories and some very good friends, but other some not so good memories as well.
I'm absolutely sure, sir. It's always a mix of emotions undergrad years. Sir, you
And
did.
the most interesting thing is, I'll tell you that after I graduated, I almost quit dentistry twice.
Oh, okay.
Um, I got admission into master's in computer science, and I thought I'll do that. Or I started doing my preparation for mathematics exam, going back to the FSC level, and thought I'll probably do pre-engineering now because I felt like maybe this is not for me. But then I thought, okay, I'll do my year of house job at least if I need to fall back on this. And that was in Islamabad, and I really enjoyed that. And I felt like, okay, no, perhaps I could do something, and maybe change of scenario environment actually is what I needed.
That's actually pretty interesting that you wanted to go into computer science later on, because your current research is on AI, but we'll get to that in a while. Sir, you did your MSc in oral pathology from the UK. Firstly, how was that experience? You've talked about your experience in Pakistan, then you moved to the UK. How was that experience of studying in the UK, firstly? And secondly, why did you choose oral pathology specifically?
Both very good questions. At that time, I think there was only one person who had ever done a master's in oral pathology from Pakistan. I think it was Dr. Naveed Khwaja at that time.
Okay.
And I just thought, okay, doing a master's actually makes me employable if nothing else. I wanted to come back to Pakistan and do something there. It just gives me something a bit different because, of course, everyone wants to do something in surgery or orthodontics or restorative. And I felt like this was something a little bit different, which perhaps more people need to do, and also secures me a job, if you know what I mean. So initially the thought was that,
Yeah.
but I also had a very good friend who was interested in the course and was already exploring it and looking into it. And he had actually applied and had got an offer. So he also talked me into it that I'm going. So why don't you come along with me and we'll go together?
Yeah.
Um, but you plan and things don't go that way. And the friend of mine, unfortunately, didn't get a visa and couldn't come for the course.
Oh
And
no.
I getting a visa and came to London to do my master's. And initially, it was quite overwhelming, to be honest, because different education system, language,
Living
oral
alone.
pathology, it's taught in a very
Yeah.
different way in Pakistan.
Yeah.
आप लोगों के टाइम का तो अभी मुझे आजकल नहीं पता, but in our time we didn't even have a single colored book. We were just studying from photocopies of photocopies. It was basically
Oh
just a
no.
matter of memorizing the features and just regurgitating them in an exam environment. And from that to come to an actual course where you can see things and you have to do things and certain things are expected from you.
Yeah.
Initially, I felt like maybe I was struggling a bit, but very quickly, I started enjoying it because I could see the effort that was being put in, and the onus was on the student to learn and come and present certain topics, and then there was a discussion with the tutor, and then I felt like that was a really good way of pushing people to actually take ownership of some of the topics and areas.
Right.
And I did really well, and actually ended up getting a distinction in their masters.
Wow, that's a brilliant answer, sir. Sir, moving on, you completed your MSc. You started your PhD almost immediately a year later. Firstly, is it easy to get a PhD opportunity in the UK after doing an MSc? And why exactly did you choose to do a PhD?
Um, yeah, I did come back to Pakistan after my master's initially. I just thought I'll work in Pakistan for a bit, give something back to the country and all that. I
Yeah.
did try, but I only lasted a year. But in addition to personal circumstances, there were some other things as well. Because I did well in my master's, I was offered a scholarship
Mhm.
by the University of Sheffield, which actually paid the difference between the home and the international student fee at that time, which made it affordable, of course, for me. And I thought it was a very good opportunity considering no one had ever done a PhD in oral path in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So I had a chat with my parents, and they were very supportive, and they thought I should take that opportunity as well. Um, Getting into a PhD program is dependent on funding more so than anything else.
Absolutely.
And it's getting more and more difficult to get funding. And unfortunately, funding for Pakistani students has always been challenging. But where there's a will, there's a way. So there are a few options that people can use or take. My feeling or reason behind doing a PhD was it's the highest academic degree that you can get, right? So it makes you employable pretty much everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Some people think a PhD makes you an authority on the subject, but it actually makes you an authority on 0.0001% of a subject, which is a
Yeah.
very small area.
Yeah.
Um, but the most important thing it gives you is sort of that critical mindset on how to review the literature and publications and that evidence-based thinking. And if you see something and want to explore it as a research idea or project, how would you do it? So it just gives you those
Mhm.
skills that can be helpful later on in life. Um, so self-funded perhaps used to be okay or possible back in the days, but more and more inflation, I mean, not just in Pakistan, but in the UK as well. Now you're looking at £45,000 a year for a PhD student, and over 3 years, that's £150,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money.
It
So
is.
it's obviously not affordable for everyone or for very few people.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it's just a matter of finding that balance or looking for the right funding calls. Like HEC have got some funding calls, and the Commonwealth through British Council have got some funding calls that people can explore. But if you have the opportunity, I would say do it. But I would also say do it in a place where you feel like you'll do actual or proper PhD and not just the
Yeah.
sort of some PhDs that some institutes are doing.
Makes sense. Uh, all right. So after completing your PhD, you stayed in the UK. Where did you work there? How did you go about building your career? Because Usually you because usually what I've seen in around my not around my circle but in my seniors is that usually people do their MSc or their PhD and they come back because it's very hard to find a job in the UK. How did you go about building a career in the UK after once you were done with your PhD?
Yeah, you're very right. When I was finishing my PhD, at that time I realized that I'm actually quite interested in the diagnostic pathology side of things.
Yeah.
My project had quite a bit of histology in it, and then I was also sharing an office with a clinical trainee and looking at cases with them. I got really interested, and I realized that for that I have to actually pretty much go back to square one and spend quite a bit of time training. As you say, that getting jobs or getting training jobs in the UK is very difficult. And honestly, twice I had my bags packed and ticket booked for Pakistan to go back to Pakistan. Um, and an interview call. I mean, I applied for lots of jobs and didn't get them. And eventually, when I was just about ready to leave, I think I was meant to leave in a week or so. That senior house officer job came up in Cardiff, which was in neuropathology and neuromedicine, and applied for it. I had interviewed for it, and I got it.
Okay.
And I just thought, okay, what should I do now? Should I carry on and go back, or should I stick around for a bit and do this 1 year job? And I thought, you know what, I may not get this experience again. Let's try this 1 year post. Okay. So I tried it. I really enjoyed it actually. And I think it sort of confirmed that sort of thinking or belief in my mind that this is the field for me. And I thought, okay, I want some more experience. Okay. So based on that, because now I had done a job in the UK and I had a PhD, I applied for another job. And this time it was a little bit easier than the first time. So then I got another senior house officer post again in neuropathology and neuromedicine, this time in Sheffield.
Mm.
So again, I thought, okay, I'll do another year. So started doing that year, and during that year, I remember the dean of the dental school here actually, and the head of the oral medicine department, um, both asked me to come around and see them, and they said, "We can see a lot of potential in you. We think you're really bright, and we feel like this is the right field for you. We don't want you to go back to Pakistan. You should try and make a career here." And I thought, okay, yeah, all right, that's quite good that they think that I'm half decent. So, what else can I do then? Because in orthopathology, there's very few training jobs, so you have to wait for someone to finish or something to become available before you can apply. And I thought, you know what, something that would be really useful and relevant is maxillofacial surgery. So MaxFax is, of course, something that is very closely related to our pathology, right? They are our biggest sort of customers or consumers. So it would be quite good to get the first hand
Absolutely.
experience to see what they want from a pathologist, but also understand how those radical surgeries or resections are being done, etc. So I started to do or applied for a SHO job in MaxFax for a year, really enjoyed it. And then thought, you know what, I'll do another year because I want a little bit more hands-on experience. I'm enjoying the minor surgery. I'm enjoying going to the theaters and doing all these cancer surgeries, etc. So did a second year in MaxFax as well then. And while I was doing a second year, then a post became available, which was an academic training position which needed someone with a PhD, but the job was 50% academic, which means you do research, you do a lot of teaching even as a trainee, but the rest of the post was all diagnostic training. So you basically spend your time reporting cases, and
Okay.
then you sit your FRC path exam after a 5 year training program.
Yeah.
So I applied for that and I got that. And I was fortunate enough
But
after that, 2011 to 2016, that I did that and ended up in a consultant post.
all right, perfect, sir. That's quite the journey that you've made
I would
to.
say it's more by accident than by design, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I never thought I'd be here 20, 22 years later. I'm still here, and one door opened after another at the right time, being the right place at the right time, sort of thing. So I
Yeah.
feel I'm very lucky and very fortunate.
That's absolutely beautiful, sir. That's a beautiful journey, sir. Because you're a consultant, you've done a PhD. Firstly, I'll talk about PhD, sir. Because the audience wanted to know was what they wanted to know was once you've done your PhD, whether it's from America, whether it's from the UK, because America में universities के पास funding ज़्यादा होती है, तो you there's probably easier, not easier, but it's relatively easier to get a PhD in the US. Once you've done your PhD, can you Because do you actually become employable in the rest of the world? Like, for example, you've done your PhD in America in oral pathology. Can you move to the Middle East and work as a professor? Is that something that people do?
Um, yeah, I think it does make you employable. I mean, you don't automatically or straight away become a professor. It's quite a long journey
That's true.
because it depends on a lot of other factors as well. But you've got that academic qualification, which everyone accepts as the highest
Yeah.
qualification. You may not be able to do the clinical work
Yeah.
depending on where we are. Okay, so for example, if you move from the UK to US, because I don't have the dental licensing exam with them, I may not be able to do the clinical work or diagnostic work, but I would be able to do teaching and I would be able to do research. So it
Yeah.
would be a slightly different type of job. And in UAE, I'll probably still be able to do all those things that I'm doing here. But yeah, it really depends where you want to be, what sort of work you want to do. The specialty of oral or head and neck pathology is not that well established everywhere. So a lot of the dental schools may not even have a
That,
diagnostic or specialist pathologist. So, but if you're interested in teaching or research only, then yes, with the PhD, you can pretty much go and work anywhere in the world.
perfect, sir. Sir, you've left the question on the perfect note. Your research. Now, you've obviously from starting from your PhD, आपकी research same तो नहीं चल रही होगी आज तक. You've probably pivoted and done a lots of different kinds of researches. Currently, आपकी research specialty किस चीज़ में चल रही है? And over the years, क्या रह चुके हैं आपके research interest in maxillofacial pathology?
Um, Research interests, you're absolutely right. You just change with the climate really because it depends on the funding climate as well, and you just
Yeah.
want to do something new and interesting and exciting. And when I was starting off, I wanted to carry on with some of the PhD work. क्योंकि जब आप PhD करते हैं, you feel like, oh, this is the best thing in the world, and I want to do more. And then
Yeah.
very soon you realize that knowledge just evolves so rapidly,
Yeah.
nothing remains new for very long. So I did carry on the PhD work for a little bit longer, and I was just looking at squamous cell carcinoma and certain biomarkers in that.
Mhm.
And I thought, yeah, that's quite interesting, and yeah, I can carry on doing that. But I was also thinking, okay, all of these markers that people are trying to develop or look at, hardly any of them actually ever reach the patient or make a difference. Most of them end up being as a lab type study where you might get a paper or two out of it, but they don't actually make much of an impact. And I
Okay.
thought it's got to be something a little bit different. And my brother actually, he's 1 year younger than me, but he's actually a computer engineer. So he was at that time based in the US, and he said to me, he shared a paper this published in Nature, which was about deep learning and AI and how it can be applied to so many different things. And he was like, "Oh, why don't you think about your field? And has anyone done that?" I started looking, and a few people were doing it, but not that many. It was emerging field back in 2015, 16.
Mhm.
And then I was lucky enough that I just came across some really good collaborators from computer science in the UK who had very similar or aligned interests. And we started working on some projects and ideas together on how artificial intelligence or AI can be applied to automatically identify features within the tissues, but also use it as sort of a risk or prognostic tool in terms of patient stratification. Okay,
Yeah.
क्या हमारे पास कोई ऐसी चीज है जो हमें बता सकती है कि this patient has got a less likelihood of survival और हम इनको different type of treatment दे सकते हैं.
ठीक है, ठीक.
Or can you predict certain biomarkers without actually having to do the test just based on the computational features?
Okay, okay.
So a lot of the work I've done over the last 5 years has revolved around that application of AI to histopathology, but
Right.
also a little bit to radiology and to clinical images as well.
All right.
Because I feel like it's got a much quicker or faster way to clinical application
Yeah, that's true.
because the images are already there and the jump hoops that you have to jump through in terms of approvals and things are fewer, and it improves efficiency, and of course it improves patient care, so it obviously has an impact, and you can maximize your output. So I felt like this was a good field to explore. So a lot of the work has been in this area, but also I still haven't given up the old side
Okay.
of things. I'm looking at more genetic or genomics or markers in head and neck or oral cancer. And right now we've got a really good project funded by British Council, Pakistan and Higher Education Commission, Pakistan with Khyber Medical University,
Okay.
in which we are comparing Pakistani populations to the UK patients in terms of how the genomic profile of these cancers might be different.
Oh,
So yeah, a few interesting different types of things
that,
going on.
That's really interesting, and I would love to talk to you about AI in a bit, about the use of AI in pathology in a bit. Firstly, sir, tell us a bit more about your NEOPATH Research Group at Sheffield. What is this about majorly?
So yeah, I mean, I've had a group for a number of years, and never really sort of thought about giving it a name
Name.
or branding it, because initially it was quite small, and then over the last 5 6 years, things sort of started to gather a bit of pace, and I felt like the group was big enough to actually make it into a formal group.
Okay.
And I wanted it to have a name which was catchy enough, but also sort of highlighted what the group was doing.
Okay.
So we were still doing pathology, but in a different way or a new kind of pathology. And thought long and hard about a name for a month or so. And then one of the group members actually came up with a name.
Yeah.
And it just sounded like it was perfect that we were doing
Absolutely. Yeah.
pathopathology, but in slightly different way. And it was basically a sort of very diverse group of people that I've got. I'm very lucky.
Hmm.
Of course, I've got a pathology background, but I've got a neurosurgeon who's doing a PhD with me. I've got another pathologist who's doing a PhD. उसके अलावा हमारे पास we've got a chemical engineer, we've got a
This is
mathematics
basically a
person.
group of researchers that you have around you
Absolutely.
that are
And very
helping.
multidisciplinary, very different
Very
backgrounds. We've got
multidisciplinary.
computer
Yeah.
scientists, we've got dentists, we've got medical doctors. So we've got a
Oh, interesting.
combination of people.
That's very interesting, sir. Sir, आप काफी associations का part रह चुके हैं. You're part of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, Royal College of Pathologists in the UK, Higher Education Academy, many others as well. I'm sure NHS में भी आपने you've held several roles. So what has this? How should I put it? What has this your global exposure of yours taught you? How have you learned differently from this global exposure of yours?
Um, it's been very useful. I mean, at a personal level, of course, it's been helpful and useful because it's helped raise my profile and people are now aware of me. Like you were saying, you went to my profile and you saw that I
Yeah,
was doing a few different things and you found it interesting.
yeah,
But also just being part of these associations or organizations, you sort of get involved in the future of the specialty as well, okay, or the future of the clinical work, and you can perhaps make some changes or introduce some ideas of yours and where you want to see things in the next few years. So you get a
okay,
seat on the table if you like. You get involved in the discussions, for example, in the UK,
that's true.
workflow planning के जी अगले 5 10 साल में कितने लोग रिटायर हो रहे हैं इनको कैसे रिप्लेस करना है क्या
Okay.
नंबर्स हैं I'm the training program director for Yorkshire इसका मतलब है शेफील्ड लीड्स आगे पीछे जितने लोग हैं उन सबकी ट्रेनिंग मुझे देखना है पर आई आल्सो हैव टू थिंक कि जब इनकी ट्रेनिंग खत्म हो जाएगी इनकी कंसल्टेंट पोस्ट कहाँ पे होनी चाहिए इनको कैसे हेल्प किया जा सकता है
Okay.
with the British Society of Oral Pathology and the International Association of Oral Pathology, it's more like okay, कैसी अच्छी meetings की जाएं which are inclusive for everyone, they're affordable for everyone, but they also have topics या speakers जिनमें लोगों का interest हो. How do we engage with people? How do we just make it easy for people to
Okay.
access these things? I
Makes
mean,
sense.
जब मैं IOP की meeting organize कर रहा था तो it was COVID peak time.
Yeah.
We canceled the meeting and then I insisted that I was going to do it online. और सिंगल हैंडली मैंने ऑनलाइन उसको अरेंज किया और
Yeah.
more than 5,000 people attended that conference, which is the biggest and most successful ever meeting of the International Association of Ornithologists.
Oh, wow.
And we made it free for everyone. So हमारे पास हर जगह से दुनिया से लोग आए and it was so well received
Yeah.
because main aim है आप लोगों को how do you reach? You want to share your skills, your knowledge, but you
Yeah.
also want to help others and you want to
That's
bring
true.
them on board and work together. So I think this is what it's taught me how to work together with
How to
people
work together.
from different areas and how to plan for the future as well.
Perfect, sir. On the topic of collaboration, let's talk about a bit about the research culture in Pakistan. Sir, आपने research बहुत कर ली होगी अब तक, and I'm sure you know a lot about research, statistical analysis, oral pathology, and आपने वहाँ पे भी research infrastructure देखा होगा how it is very different from research culture in Pakistan. How do you think we should go about fixing that research culture in Pakistan? किस तरह हम उस research culture को increase कर सकते हैं पाकिस्तान में? Because in the recent years undergrad level पे focus आना शुरू हुआ है, but not as much as there should be. It will still take a bit more time. How do you think we can fast track it and improve the research culture in Pakistan?
Oh, in English, there's a saying, how long is a piece of string? So हमारे पास कितना टाइम है इस बात को करने के लिए?
सर आप you take your time. जब ज़्यादा हो जाएगा I'll cut you off जब मुझे लग रहा होगा अब अच्छा अब काफी I've gotten what out of it out I've gotten the
बेसिकली आई
chance.
थिंक प्रॉब्लम जो है ना वो काफी डिफरेंट टाइप्स के हैं और मल्टीपल हैं. The biggest issue is that you don't have enough PhDs or people with the academic background teaching the undergrads and even postgrads.
Yeah,
हमारे FCPS बहुत अच्छे हैं और बहुत स्किल्ड हैं, पर they're not researchers and they're not trained to be researchers. उनका उनका काम और उनकी स्किल्स यही है कि वो पेशेंट्स को ट्रीट करें और बेस्ट लेवल पे ट्रीट करें. जो लोकल PhDs हैं हमारी, unfortunately they significantly and seriously fall short of the standards that we expect from an academic here. So although it's helpful, in some ways it's not helpful because the bar is set very low.
yeah,
उसमें जान पहचान का बड़ा है, अप्रोच का बड़ा है कि जी you know this person, you might get into a PhD. There's very very few institutes
yeah,
who are trying to do it properly, and hopefully things will change over time.
yeah,
पर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है चीजें जो हैं वो change हो रही हैं. But you need that change of faculty over time. You need a good mix of clinical and also academic staff जो कि बच्चों को पढ़ाएं. And then you need that research based or evidence based teaching.
yeah.
जो कि जब अंडर ग्रेजुएट्स देखें उसको तो उनको भी इंटरेस्ट हो कि
Interest.
फॉर एग्जांपल ओ दिस पर्सन वाज टीचिंग मी ये इतना एआई वगैरह में और चीज में काम करें. आई एम रियली इंटरेस्टेड. आई विल गो एंड हैव अ चैट विद देम कि मैं इसमें कैसे इन्वॉल्व हूं.
That's
अब
true.
यूके में फॉर एग्जांपल देयर इज एन ऑप्शन टू डू अ बीएससी along with BDS. Now in Pakistan BSc कैसे होता है, आप इंग्लिश का पेपर दे दें
English का
BDS के
पेपर दे
साथ आपको BSc मिल जाती है.
yeah, yeah.
In UK you have to take a year out of your BDS, पर आपको वो फंड करते हैं कि ओके जाओ और पूरा BSc का प्रोजेक्ट करो जिसमें एक साल यू जस्ट गो एंड वर्क ऑन रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट, विच इज़ अ वेरी गुड आइडिया अर्ली स्टेज पे लोगों को इन्वॉल्व करने के लिए. तो इस तरह के इनिशिएटिव्स जो हैं दे आर वेरी हेल्पफुल. ऑफ कोर्स पाकिस्तान में देयर इज अ प्लेथोरा ऑफ MPhils and unfortunately although I mean no offense intended to those MPhils, but MPhil shouldn't be an end degree, it should be a starting point.
Yeah,
In the UK, MPhil is given to people who can't finish a PhD, but unfortunately, the PMC or PMDC and HEC, the way they've developed the system, उन्होंने MPhil को एक इस तरह की डिग्री बना लिया, which is neither here nor there.
yeah.
इनको चाहिए कि सारी MPhils को MPhil leading to PhD करें.
I'm still leading to
So the
PhD.
good students who are doing well in the MPhil, and there's no concept of 3-4 साल की MPhil should be 1 or 2 years, और उसके बाद आप उनको कहें the good students उनको progress करें, उनको PhD कराएं वहाँ से.
Yeah,
And this way, you actually are rewarding the good MPhil students who are actually doing a proper PhD, who can then take back that message or information or those skills to those undergraduate students. फिर similarly, research meetings नहीं है, exposure नहीं है. Undergraduates, postgraduates के बाद आप PDA की conference में जाते थे, उसमें ठीक है पोस्टर प्रेजेंटेशन कर लेते हैं पर नाम की सिर्फ रिसर्च है.
yeah.
तो वो भी अब रिसेंटली चेंज हो रहा है आहिस्ता आहिस्ता. ये पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ डेंटल रिसर्च, डॉक्टर अब्दुल समद खान ने इतना काम किया है उस पर, एज
Absolutely.
ट्राइंग टू चेंज द स्टेटस को इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाह रहे हैं कि जी प्रॉपर रिसर्च जो है किस तरह से की जाए और किस तरह से क्लिनिकल और एकेडमिक लोगों को साथ लाया जाए टू डिलीवर ऑन रिसर्च. द कोलैबोरेशन इज डिफिकल्ट. लोग अक्सर जो है वो कहते हैं नाम डाल दो पेपर पे हमारा, पर काम नहीं करना चाहते.
Oh my
दैट्स
God,
अ बिग
that
इशू.
is so true. That is, मैंने सोचा था इसके बाद I'll tell you about this. I'm sorry I cut you off actually. मैंने अभी एक research मेरी complete हुई है on it's a very simple research. It's a cap study on AI and its uses in oral radiology among dentists of Lahore. Now it's so difficult to publish it because I approach anyone and they're like, put my name and I'll get it published. And I know I've worked hard on the research. So yeah, anyway, obviously ऐसे ही होगा. It is what it is. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I'll have to do something like that. But now I'm in the process of getting it published. So you're absolutely bang on about that. Okay, you just want to get their name in.
But if you got good work, I don't think you should have to. There are still good people around who won't want reward from it
Absolutely,
and who will help
absolutely.
you and guide you.
Yeah.
So do try and find those people. And we're trying to set something up. I mean, me and Dr. Samad have been talking for a long time, and we recently applied for some funding as well
Mhm.
to IADR, the International Association of Dental Research, कि हम एक dental research hub बनाना चाहते हैं पाकिस्तान में, ताकि जो young researchers हैं या लोग हैं जिनको projects की लिए guidance चाहिए हो या resources चाहिए हो या help चाहिए हो, कि हम कोई ऐसा कोई think tank बनाए लोगों का और ऐसे कुछ सेशंस कराएं या वर्कशॉप्स कराएं जिसके थ्रू हम उनको हेल्प कर सकें just for ideas without any involvement of ours. हमारा नाम किसी चीज़ पे नहीं होगा, हम कोई क्रेडिट नहीं लेंगे, पर हम उन लोगों को कैसे हेल्प कर सकते हैं इसको रिसर्च को आगे सस्टेनेबल बनाने के लिए.
That's
पर let's see if we get there or not. But you just need sort of things like that, and you need goodwill, and you need a lot of initiative effort. There's some good things happening in Shifa.
yeah.
Professor Anwar Ali Shah, who's the dean there, introduce a PhD program.
Yeah.
And I know because I'm involved in the process कि every selection was on merit. Um, और बल्कि वो मुझे कह रहे थे यार आपने oral pathology का पेपर बनाया, everyone failed it. And I was like, yeah, but you might as well bet on the winning horse than pick a
Yeah.
horse that's not going to finish the race, right?
That's true. That's absolutely true. Beautiful, sir. That was a beautiful answer. Some very, very great insights onto the research culture in Pakistan. Sir, let's talk a bit now about AI and your research that you're doing. Sir, मुझे AI का personally शौक तब हुआ when I interviewed Dr. Varda Inam a year back on my podcast channel. Dr. Varda Inam is a CEO of this dental AI company in the US, Overjet. So उधर से I connected with her and I started working with her on annotations and labels, and now it's a very big company, and we've set up a team in Pakistan as well of 4 or 5 dentists who are now working for the company. So उधर से मुझे शौक हुआ AI का, and since then I've published a few papers on AI as well, although they're nothing compared to what you're doing, but still मुझे भी बड़ा शौक था, and that's how I got introduced to how technology is revolutionizing our field. So my question to you would be that how do you think, well, the first question that I'll ask you is, आपको क्या लगता है कि एक बहुत बड़ा आर्ग्यूमेंट आता है कि AI will be replacing pathologists and radiologists. I personally do not believe that. I just feel like it'll improve the efficiency and the efficacy of pathologists and radiologists, improve patient care. आपका इस बारे में क्या opinion है?
Yeah, some really interesting points there. I'll probably use a line that I think you have used in one of your talks as well. I was
Okay.
just looking at some of your things,
Oh,
and I
thank you.
always say that AI will not replace pathologists, but it will replace the pathologists who do not use AI. And
Absolutely.
it's the same for probably radiologists as well. Because if you have a tool that helps you and makes your life easier, then why wouldn't you use it? ठीक है,
Absolutely.
जैसे हमारे पास गूगल मैप्स है, पर मैं कहूँ कि नहीं मैंने किसी नई जगह पे जाना है चीचों की मलिया में, पर मैं खुद ही से ढूंढ के जाऊंगा. आई मीन दैट्स फूलिश, राइट?
Yeah.
तो जब आपके पास एक एक चीज है जो कि आपकी जिंदगी आसान कर रही है, इट्स
Yeah.
इट्स efficient, it's saving you time, it's
Yeah.
saving you money, it's saving you resources, then
Absolutely.
it's a no-brainer to use it. In the low resource setting like Pakistan, it's ideal. But of course, AI has got its own challenges. Initially, there is some investment or equipment required and there's some training required. But the good thing is that in terms of the software development and computer science sort of thing, there is a huge potential in Pakistan.
Hmm.
So many good people. And I've done quite a bit of work with the collaborators in NUST and other places in Pakistan in computer science. कि बहुत अच्छे लोग भी हैं, बच्चे भी हैं, और उनमें टैलेंट भी बहुत है, फास्ट में भी बहुत काम हो रहा है.
That's true.
तो आफ्टर दैट इनिशियल हिकअप्स, और अगर आप में वही बात है, विल हो एंड यू कैन ओवरकम दोस इनिशियल चैलेंजेस एंड हिकअप्स, देयर इज नो रीजन कि आप डिलीवर नहीं कर सकते हो. But you
Yeah.
just need to have the idea, you just need to have the drive, and you just need to find the right collaborators.
Right collab.
Don't just go for the big names for the sake of names,
Yeah.
but look at who's actually doing work, who's actually publishing, who's actually bringing in grant money. That's the biggest thing in research.
Yeah.
अगर किसी को पैसे मिल रहे हैं रिसर्च करने के लिए, that means they actually have got some credibility and standing, क्योंकि they have actually sold that idea to someone else who actually has paid them to do some research. And
Yeah.
that is a big sort of clue as to who you should work with or can work with. और
Yeah.
आप बात कर रहे थे छोटे पेपर्स की या बड़े पेपर की. देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज छोटा पेपर. एवरीवन हैज टू स्टार्ट समवेयर. आई रिमेंबर व्हेन आई वाज स्टार्टिंग, मैं केस रिपोर्ट लिखता था तो मैं इतना खुश होता था कि वो एवरी अदर डे आई विल गो ऑन PubMed and see how many publications I've got. So it's just a matter of perspective, and with
Yeah.
time, of course, आप early stage में अपने career के,
Yeah.
and inshallah time के साथ things change,
Inshallah.
and your perspective and your standard or level changes as well, and the
Absolutely.
things you want to do change too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I feel like it's got huge potential, of course. But वही बात है कि उसकी हाइप इतनी ज़्यादा क्रिएट हो गई है कि हर कोई कहता है एआई कर लें जी, एआई कर लें, without understanding के
Yeah, that's true.
what is AI and how it can be applied, how it can't be applied. People
True.
forget about the black box problem कि अच्छा अगर आप deep learning apply कर रहे हो, you may
That's
not know कि how is it making those decisions. So it's quite important to actually figure out what reasons are there behind those decisions as well. So you need to have that insight. But
that's
most importantly, you need to have the data sets, and that's a sad thing because in Pakistan we've got so many patients, right? We've got so many resources, but we don't have like any big national or even provincial or multi-center data sets. चाहे
yeah.
radiology ले लें, चाहे
Absolutely.
pathology ले लें.
Yeah.
Because that would be so good. If nothing else, बाहर से लोग आके कहेंगे कि हम आपको इन्वॉल्व करते हैं अपनी स्टडीज में, अपना डेटा हमें यूज करने हैं.
Data use करने दें. Yeah.
So things like that got sort of huge implications and potential.
All right, perfect, sir. That's once again a very beautiful answer. Sir, we'll be moving towards the end of our interview. If someone like me, many of my colleagues who are fresh graduates, जिन्होंने अभी अभी graduate किया है या are in their house job or are in their final year, what should the mindset of a young dentist be? A modern day dentist, because you've been in the research in academia for the past 22 years. You know students now, and you know how the world is changing. अगर आप एक सेंटेंस में बता सकें, what should the mindset of a young dentist be?
Oh, that's a different one, difficult one, because every person is different, circumstances are different, right? So it really depends what you want from life. For a lot of people, the finances are a key factor. So
Yeah,
my feeling would be that I would say that don't think about the money. I know it's easy for me to say,
yeah,
but मैंने जब house job की थी मुझे को it was an honorary house job, okay, and I sort of pretty much lived hand to mouth जब मैं पढ़ रहा था क्योंकि पैसे इतने नहीं होते थे. पर आपके पास यू गॉट द रेस्ट ऑफ योर लाइफ टू मेक मनी. सो अगर आप शुरू में ग्रेजुएशन के बाद आई थिंक आइडियली यू वांट टू जस्ट एक्सप्लोर अ फ्यू थिंग्स बिफोर यू सेटल डाउन एंड से आई वांट टू डू दिस.
yeah,
पर आई फाइंड इट रियली इंटरेस्टिंग कि बहुत सारे जो यंग लोग हैं या अंडर ग्रेजुएट्स या फ्रेश ग्रेजुएट्स दे से मैंने और तो करनी है, मैंने ये करनी है. आई मीन you haven't really had much experience to
that,
actually make the
that's very
decision.
true.
So
That's very
keep an open mind is what I would say. Try करें तीन चार चीजों को और उसके बाद डिसाइड करें, बिकॉज व्हाट यू वांट टू थिंक इज के आई वांट टू डू समथिंग व्हिच if I was doing it 30 years later I would still be happy doing it.
yeah,
So if you look at it that way कि 30 साल में मैं इस चीज से बोर हो जाऊंगा या I will still be enjoying it, and
right,
then that helps make your decision, and sooner or later you will start earning or making money from whatever you're doing. But I would say don't rush into a decision and keep an open mind before you settle down in what you want to do. Not everyone has to be or should be an academic. Of course, लोगों का interest clinical side
yeah,
पे, and that's equally, if not more important.
yeah,
कुछ लोगों का interest general practice की तरफ है, being a
yeah,
GDP or practitioner on their own, and
right.
that's absolutely fine क्योंकि उनकी भी ज़रूरत उतनी ही है
Yeah, absolutely,
society में और community में.
absolutely,
हर
absolutely.
किसी का role है, and it really depends what you see your role as.
Thank you, sir. All right, sir, we'll be moving towards the end now. If जब हमने ये अपने Instagram पे डाला and on our Facebook that and on Twitter, if someone wants to कि आपसे क्या questions कोई पूछना चाहेगा, तो one question apart from these questions, one question that kept coming up was that if someone wants to collaborate with you on a research, what should they do? Not just you, if someone wants to collaborate with a researcher abroad, what should they do or how should they approach them? What's the thing that international researchers look for in Pakistani or Indian dentists?
I think the most important thing is that, yeah, don't be scared to approach people. Okay, so if you feel like you want to work with someone, definitely approach them. Don't hesitate. But um, make sure it's personalized or personal enough, the email that you're writing. Okay, I got a lot of emails, not Pakistan, generally from all over the world, where people have copied and pasted the same email, and it's obvious it's gone to other people as well because I feel like there's nothing that specific about me.
Yeah,
So if you want to approach someone जिसके साथ काम करना है,
yeah,
थोड़ा सा homework कर लें जाके इंटरनेट पे कि what sort of work they're doing and say, oh, I read this paper of yours and I found it really interesting. कोई ऐसा है तरीका कि मैं involve हो सकूं, can I do anything to help? Or I've got some cases that I feel like I want to contribute, or can I come on board in some projects or help you in any way?
makes sense.
And I think that actually tells the person कि आपने अपना homework किया है, you read about the person you want to work with rather than sending a blanket email. So that makes a big difference. And yeah, just be courteous and professional in the email as well. If someone wants to work with me anytime, they can either approach me on Twitter, LinkedIn, drop me an email, and I would respond to anyone who wants to sort of work with. Most of the collaborators have actually gained that way. A lot of collaborations I've gained via Twitter or social media. So,
Oh, that's good.
and I've made some good friends that way as well.
Thank you.
So hesitate ना करें, जरूर
Yeah,
approach करें,
all
but
right.
just make sure कि आप जब उनको लिख रहे हैं तो you do your homework and be specific about what you want from them. और अपना CV साथ हमेशा जरूर attach करें,
Yeah,
उनको बताएं कि what sort of things you're doing and how you can sort of play a role of what you can do.
perfect, sir. That's a beautiful answer. Once again, last question to you. What do you think about this platform, the startup of ours, and any advice or suggestions that you would like to give us?
Um, Startup is very good. हमें ऐसे initiatives की काफी अर्से से जरूरत है. I think it's important because students at the undergraduate or even postgraduate level in Pakistan may not got exposure
Yeah.
in person to hearing or speaking to people from so many different backgrounds, specialties in different countries. So it's really good that you're breaking down these barriers and making access easier for
Thank you.
all the other people. So Allah miyan ajar de aapko
Thank you, sir.
is
Thank
चीज़
you
का.
so much.
But hopefully one of these, I'm not saying mine, but इनमें से कोई interview या your work can inspire one person to do something in life, then you've achieved your aim, right?
That's absolutely,
So
that's true.
I think it's very good that you're doing. Just keep doing it, but of course you have to think about your own sanity and time, and
That's true, sir.
maybe grow the team with time and delegate some of the tasks as well if when you feel like it's becoming unmanageable.
No,
Because
no,
of
sir.
course,
It
काफी
did
सारी
become a
चीजों में
huge.
involved हो.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. It did become a huge task in the middle. Now I do have a team. All I do is just do interviews and approach people and all of that. So I've built a team and a workflow around it. So now it's become much easier because ever since I've graduated, you have to work on your own career as well and build a career. तो ये YouTube करना काफी मुश्किल हो जाता है. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here today. It meant so much to me here listening to your insights, and I'm sure the audience will be thrilled to listen to you as well. And thank you so much once again. Have a wonderful Ramzan and a wonderful Eid. Aage.
Thank you very much. Eid Mubarak in advance to you as well, and
Thank you.
thank you so much for having me.